We're just very thankful that Mark's here because he knows.
Welcome to Wednesday Morning Live. We're going to be talking about parenting today, and I'm here to ask the questions.
And by we mean Mark.
I'm here to ask the questions because I know nothing about parenting. So we're going to really jump on one specific frame of thinking. Kevin, Shannon, you guys have kids. Shannon oversees our kids' ministries and like little kids, big kids, you name it. And the topic we're going to be discussing today is really, really important. You have 168 weeks in 168 hours in your week, and you bring your kid to church for 1, maybe 2. If you're a serve team member, 3 hours.
Right.
The most that a kid's going to get is going to kids service and then maybe sitting in adult service. Mm-hmm. So out of 168 hours, they get this 3-hour little window. How do you take church home with you and make sure that the conversation that starts on Sunday doesn't end on Sunday, but you actually take what was preached, what was taught, their lesson, their class, the things they're dealing with at church? How do you take that home as parents? How do you model it? What does the conversation look like? When does it start? How do I do it? When my son starts asking questions, when he's in that toddler class and they have those 3 big things, Jesus wants to be my friend forever, God has a plan for me. How do I have those conversations? Tell me what y'all know, because I know nothing.
Yeah. I would start by saying I heard Ron Hunter, who is the CEO of Randall House, he made the statement one. He said a lot of times we want to get in the car and we want to set these strong rules of you can't do this and we're going to talk about this right now. And he said with my age group, and it's all dependent on age group taking it home. You know, where are your kids first off? But he said you got to find what works for them to talk to you. You know, he said for him at that time it was, hey kids, before you put your earbuds in, can we talk about what we listened to or what we heard in church this morning and what you learned? Yeah. And then he has questions that he asks. And so it's knowing the age of your children and how to interact with them, and not just getting in the car and going from them sitting still in class to now all of a sudden we're enforcing it again.
So I can't just have a formula I drop on every child I ever meet and ask the same exact question. You tell me I have to pay attention to my kids?
Yeah, it's weird like that.
You have to know what they're learning.
So parenting's not super easy. That's what you're getting at.
Sometimes.
Okay.
What do you got,
It's
Shannon?
satisfying.
Yeah.
Getting in the car. Again, it's the child. If they're young, if they're toddlers, may not be the time that you begin that conversation. They're tired. They're very hungry, especially if they've been here 3 services. But even the older ones, their conversation, it's not so much you can even ask them a question. Just give me 2 things that you learned today. Just something to bring it back. It'll be in their head still. And then the kids, and even in toddlers now, have what's called a need to know for the week. They're posted on the chalkboards outside the door.
Yeah.
Papers.
Chalk artists designing those now. It's lots of fun.
Not me. She's very clever.
Yeah.
And we send papers home with a verse to memorize for the series, and the need to know that day or that week. This week's was I can serve my family, because it's about Ohana family. And so how are you going to do that this week?
Yep. Oh, I would love for my son to begin doing the chores I've been waiting on him to do at this point. Yeah. He's 6 months old, and I don't know why he hasn't cleaned the bathroom yet.
Dude, it's brutal how long they wait. I mean, they drag it out forever.
So like 2 years?
Oh, man. Yeah.
Are you serious?
Yeah, which I will brag on my kids. We came home yesterday, and they cleaned the house, which, you know, my wife is going back to work, and I had a youngest kid, or the 7-year-old here, but man, they did really good. It was awesome. But man, I'm with you on that. Like a lot of times with the lesson, it will tie into our family. Like it'll tie into how can I serve my family this week? Like, man, that's a win. And we can teach our kids how to be a team player in our family just by
basically giving you a great opportunity to have a conversation that needs to be had, and we're just tossing it, throwing it, you know.
And then it's learning the memory verse with the kids, you know, on your rides, man. You got the paper, and we have that's some of the most fun that we have. Is my wife's really good at making hand gestures to go along with the verse, and you know, love. You can make the heart, so on and so forth. But finding ways to make it exciting, even for the older kids, so that they don't feel like it's childish, and you know, this is what all the little kids do, but it's what mom and dad does. And being on the same team that's a big part of it. Like knowing I'm coming out, and I would even say, parents, we need to share with our kids what we learned in a practical way.
Yeah,
we don't have to take it so deep that they're like, what? Yeah. But you know, God worked on Dad's heart today, and God spoke to me about.
And if I could admit something, I think that's already my rub is well, for me to talk with my son, I'm going to have to be a little more, because by the time I'm done on Sunday, I'm almost like, all right, let's put that message away. Let's move on. Well, I have to like remember what I talked about that morning if I'm going to talk with him.
Right.
And I'm doing the same thing that we accuse attenders of doing. Like, well, service is over.
Yep.
Let's move on. Let's go to
Check
lunch.
mark. Yep.
And so it takes me being intentional with my message or what I heard in my small group or my service that I sat through. And so how do we expect our kids to do it if we're not doing it?
Right.
And it doesn't always have to fall on Sunday. You know,
Yes.
if you're done with your sermon on Sunday, then begin the conversation on Monday or, you know, throughout the week. And most of our kids needs to know is something that can carry throughout the week. And we'll ask them, what did you do this week to serve your family? Well, then they love to be able to answer.
Yeah.
And you've allowed them that opportunity to be able to answer.
It's really good. It's really good.
Giving our kids the opportunity to be in the spotlight.
Yeah.
And that's what every parent wants. We want our kid to be in the spotlight at some point, and so they get that opportunity.
Yeah.
That's huge. And I would go back to, you know, asking the question. I'd love to hear, but when we get in the car on Sunday, our kids are starving. We've been here for a while, and you guys too. You guys understand it. And if you serve, man, you've been here for a long time. And,
Right.
But your kids are starving, and even if they're just a little bit hungry, they're starving. And so
There's no in between.
Yeah.
when you get in the car on Sunday afternoon, ours is pretty much like we're figuring out what we're doing for lunch. We come back for small group, but it's figuring out what we're doing for lunch. But you mentioned having it with you. How is it? How do you make it intentional with yourself to teach your child, like to have that conversation later? Does that make sense?
Yeah. Well, mine's 9, and conversation is not for lacking by any means. So we have conversations all the time, and bringing that, because I know what's in kids, I have the paper. It's either on our refrigerator or in the car somewhere. If it makes it to the refrigerator, that's a good week, but it will stay in the car most of the time. And then I'm like, wait, find that paper. Let's review what we went over. You're in the car so often. So use that as an opportunity instead of a screen to look at, just a simple conversation. And also what you hear in service, if you are taking your kids to service, then you have that as an opportunity to have a conversation as well, because what did Pastor Mark say about this? Or, even they can bring you questions as well. And the questions should be, nothing too deep that you would feel needs to be, let's, wait until we're in our bedroom and can pray about it. But they can lead to that. And to have that sweet conversation with your child, and one day you will, where you're just sitting at the end of the bed having a deeper conversation that you've probably even had with any other adult than a child who's just asking simply. You've opened yourself up to those moments. Then if you have, if you feel insecure about the conversation, to be honest with you, allow God just to lead you with those answers. Because as a parent, that's,
we're their trusted source of information.
And
they
so
want to know if what I heard
answering,
today is true.
Yes.
And it's going to require us to be more than just if your teacher said so.
Right. Yeah, don't say that.
If that's what Pastor Mark said, we're going to have to be a little more, and that may actually force us, because kids ask the questions we don't want to answer.
Yep.
Because they're thinking about it.
And they're more comfortable asking parents.
Oh, for sure.
They should be.
They should trust you.
Our home should be set up in a place where they trust us to ask us those questions. And how dare us say, well, I don't really know.
Or go ask your mother.
Yeah, guilty. A couple times, maybe twice.
I can already tell I'm going to be like, your mom was listening really good in church today.
She took notes.
Yeah.
She's good.
I know that we're going to talk about kids attending church with us in the next session, but I really like the curriculum that our kids and toddler put out, because it's online based, it's web based, and I can give opportunities for my kids to rewatch the lessons, and they like them.
Yeah.
Man, my 3-year-old toddler, she eats it up every night at bedtime. It's an excuse for her to stay up.
Yeah.
Obviously, I know that.
Yeah.
I'm not that.
She's so spiritual.
Right. I'm not that shallow, but I do know that it's something that's going into her rather than other things that could be filling her mind. It's it's a good, it's a biblical
if she'll watch
foundation,
it, let her watch it.
right?
Yeah.
And the same with my 7-year-old. She loves watching those lessons, and even during the day when they're asking to watch TV, yeah, absolutely, we're going to watch your lesson. And a lot of times you get kicked, but I want to watch. Okay, well, we're not watching that right now. And so replacing it, and sometimes it's just starting with replacing something. You can't yank something away from your child and expect them to behave well. You have to work towards it and giving them the option. We're not watching anything, or we can go through your lesson together.
Yeah.
Just giving them an alternative, and that's parenting in general. We love to say no. I find myself telling my kids no, but man, I've learned if I can get from saying no to how about we try, and give them a positive option.
Yeah. Right. So that's good. I think that's the main thing we wanted to cover. Is there anything you guys would add to that as far as all right, my kid comes out of the toddler class, they come out of the big kid class. For reference for those watching at our church, our toddler class is 3, 4, and 5, or is it 4 and 5?
3s and 4s.
Threes
when
and
they get
fours.
5, they're over.
Okay, they're over, and the big kids are 5 to usually 11.
Grade.
Oh, 5th grade.
Yeah.
5 to 5th grade. Yep. So if you've got kids and they're going to church, our church or another church, maybe you live in another state, you're watching this, they probably come out of their class with a resource. You're not just flying blind. So even if you don't feel comfortable talking about this, like most churches, we're not trying to train your kids spiritually for you. We're trying to come alongside you and help you train I don't want your kids to look to me for spiritual advice for the rest of their life. I want them to know they can talk to mom, to dad, to even their brothers and sisters as they get older. So our church is providing resources for you if you attend here. But even these resources do no good if it's just something oh, cool. Do you know your verse? And then toss it. It's got to be that ongoing,
and it goes back to us. We just assume that they're learning it in class. They're learning the verse in class. Well, that's great. They're learning the verse, but are they learning how it applies? Yeah, they're learning lessons, but man, the day-to-day is how we apply Scripture to our lives.
This is almost more Sunday school or group or your kids' class at church is more of a foundation for you to create time in your week. You should be spending time with your kids talking about the Word, and this is a great starting point. If you don't know where to start, just pull that out every morning. Yeah. Hey, let's talk about that memory verse. Right. Hey, what did you notice about that verse? And probably by day 4, you've exhausted that verse, but they've memorized it, and you've really made sure that they know. Your class is really talking about serving your family, and to be honest with you, that's not always easy. And you could come up with 15 questions about that right there. Yeah. Why isn't it easy? Why do I want to be served and not to serve? And if you just put 3 minutes of thought into this piece of paper we printed for you,
right.
You could have so much conversation, but it is that work, and I'm not acting like it's we're
and
busy.
As parents, we're oftentimes overwhelmed with the papers that our kids bring home.
That's
but this is not just a paper. This is so much more. And at very least, take a picture of it. Take a picture of it, have it on your phone, put it on your screensaver.
Yeah.
If you would change your screensaver every week to that, what a reminder that would be when you go to open your phone.
Have I talked to my kid today?
I talked to my kid?
Yeah, that's really good.
Awesome. I know that our next session I want to talk more about students and having them in church with us, but also having those conversations because that's different age group.
So let's talk about that as we close. Next week we're going to talk a little bit deeper. What does it look like to bring kids home and talk with them about a tough topic? They sat in the adult service and they were 7 or they were 17, and the topic was mature. It was something they'd never thought about. It was something super spiritual that kind of rattled them or made them a little unsure about their faith. And, maybe the preacher said something he shouldn't have, or maybe it was just a topic that we don't often talk about. How do we handle it when something is said at church, or maybe just something is said by a church member, right? Do we believe that? What is that? And you can tell when a kid's kind of their eyes wide open, does the Bible say that? How do we handle that as parents? Because your gut can't be, we'll just talk to pastor later about it. No. You've got to learn to take them to the Word. Right. And so next week we're going to talk about how to talk with your kids about tough topics after church. Yeah. Guys, have a great Wednesday. We'll see you next Wednesday. Be talking with your kids, and hopefully they'll be serving your family if they were in church this past weekend.
Absolutely.
So, guys, have a great Wednesday.
See you guys.
Bye.